Hey, how are you? Herman's Hermits. Sea Crew. It's a cover song, but they do a great job. Hey, how are you? We just get a few dozen volumes down here. Oh my God. So many volumes, so little time. You've heard it. The harsh realities. Hi, everybody. This is another Mexican vacation chapter. And the reason that I chose Herman's Hermits is because, I just like them, but they're playing the song Sea Cruise. And it turns out on our Mexican vacation about the second day, the first day was kind of taken up with moving in and, finding the liquor store and eating local eats. And that night we had all the young men the young Indian men in the village come over, and we drank and played music with each other all night long. They didn't bring their wives or girlfriends. It's just not done that way in Mexico. So we're just visiting. And we had a great time, and since we were there in off-season, anything we wanted was ours. This comes into play with the cabin that we chose, was because it's the cabin 10 feet off the blacktop of the major parking lot in town, the only parking lot in town. And it's also about 30 yards from the ocean, from the bay. And it's the first one, and it's the best one. There are others there, but they pale in comparison. So we were able to just take the best cabin, see. And it had 2 or 3 beds in there because it was Ted, me, and Annabelle. But it had 2 basic bedrooms, divided by walk to the back in tile that goes to the baño, the Mexican bathroom. And we actually had water, at least most of the time. No electricity. We brought our own. So, the first night was joyous in having all of the locals feel free enough and invited enough to come over and relax and drink with us and play music. So Ted and I would play a song, and we didn't have 2 guitars, but we had the guitar and a portable little piano that I played. And so Ted and I would play a selection and warble on and everything, and we were as entertaining as we could be, and we had a captive audience because they wanted their turn. So they were, gracious enough to watch us do our shit. And when it became their turn, I believe they had 1 guitar with them. But so we would, offer Ted's guitar, and most of the time they took it, I believe. There might have been a time when only one person knew the song or something, but basically we shared, and we traded. First we'd play and sing, and then they'd play and sing. And in between every stop, we'd make sure everybody had all the beer they wanted. Anybody need a cigar? Any tequila, any vodka, anybody want anything at all. We did that every chance we got. And then we would play, and they would play. And this went on way into the night. There's nobody there. It doesn't matter. They're the ones that are there, and they're on our porch. They didn't think of us as gringos. They looked upon us as amigos, because we didn't look at them as locals. What can you do for me? We looked upon them as, hey, buddy, how's it going? But there are times when you want to do something, and they snap right into that, let me do that for you. They still need to make money, even though it's in the off-season. But they weren't over pushy about it or anything. As a matter of fact, we had to ask the main honcho Indian in town, who was very close friends with Ted, because he had the guitar that was on the front porch the other night. Well, Ted had remembered that he had a guitar, and Ted brought him a new pack of strings. that, that's like a miracle. Because where they live, way out through the mountain desert, oh, what a hassle. First, you got to get the money to pay for them. Then you got to find somebody who'll go get them. And then you got to find somebody who's going to bring them back. So, while it might seem easy, basically what happens if you're this native in Bahia de Los Angeles, if you break a string, you learn how to play without that string. There's just the way it is. So when Ted brought him a pack of strings for his guitar, he was floored. He couldn't believe it. And he immediately took all three of us up to his house. Now, the town is, down by the ocean is where our cabin is. Then there's a street that goes up towards the main store. That owner is the owner of everything. Our cabin, the nice restaurant next door, the Black Top. So there's a road that goes up there. And before you get all the way up there, there are side roads that go along because Bahia de Los Angeles is up against a hillside. So if you're the poorer, you have an abode somewhere right on the road. And the reason you're poorer is you're in the middle of all the traffic, and it's easy for people to come and bug you because you're right there. So, but if you go up one level, well, you're doing a little bit better because, well, you're not right down there in the traffic, and also they have to make somewhat of an effort to come up and bother you because you're a story above, as it were. And I believe that's where the Indian honcho that Ted gave the guitar strings to lives. And there's another street above that. And then you're even safer, and people definitely, it's not worth it trying to bother you unless it's really important, so they left. So anyway, he had a nice, comfortable house up there on the second level. And he brought us in, and his wife, who never spoke, he didn't even introduce her. He just seated us so that she was very gracious. That's what female occupants do, is make sure that the visitor knows that they're appreciated. And so he sat down, the Indian, and us, me, Ted, and Annabelle, at their nice little table, and it's a very intricate little kitchen. There's a gas stove or wood stove over here, and there's a table over here. And she started making tortillas and whatever else, tacos, whatever she made, it was glorious. And every time she brought some over and, had a cover over it to keep it warm and offered it to us, we would say, "Thank you very much, it's very good." We got hip to the jive that she couldn't converse with us, but there's no law of us not making her aware that we are appreciative. We'd also thank the hombre. Hey, he's throwing a party. So you can see how, because of a set of guitar strings, and from Ted being in this town the year before, and kind of knowing the ins and outs, well, we were amigos, not tourists. But there's still tourist things that come up, even in the off-season, and the way that works is, hold on, I used to have a pause key. I just realized the air conditioner wasn't on. See what a difference this makes. Oh my God, talk about sound quality. And what, my fan's on too? Oh my God. Be a miracle if you could have heard anything I said at all. Well, we'll carry on as if it were okay. Like I said, I used to be able to pause. My camera doesn't pause anymore, so I must ask you to bear with me for this needed word from our sponsor. All right, thanks. Now, where this touristy aspect first came in is we spoke to the numero uno honcho, our friend with the guitar strings. And we told him we wanted to hire a boat. So we told him, and he went to, get it done. So this young man comes tooling around. Right out front of us is the Bay of Los Angeles. And it goes in, half a mile or so, and then comes back out about a mile away on the other side. Just craggy rocks. There's no sense in going over there. But it makes a great divider for the Bay of Los Angeles. And when you come out a little bit, then it goes around, and it goes on out to sea. Out the toilet, baby. You know what I mean. And on the other side from our cabin is, first of all, there's the main restaurant in town. There's other places to get food from locals, and it was wonderful. And this main restaurant in town, owned by the honcho who's renting us the cabin, this restaurant was so elegant, except for the fact that they don't speak English. You'd never know you weren't in a posh restaurant in America. I mean, it's a time warp. It's a place warp. It's fantastic. Of course, it's expensive. Whereas it costs almost nothing to shop anywhere else. So we did spend a drinking night out there. Had a very good time at their delicious bar. Thank you. And we had a dinner night there, where, of course, we drank as much as we ate, but the food was wonderful. Kind of expensive, but hey, it's only a couple times, and like I say, everything else was dirt cheap, and we had a lot of money. So we went there because we could afford it. We weren't going to feel guilty, and oh my God, I'm not going to drink for the rest. Everything was fine. So about the boat, about the choosing of the Sea Cruise song from Herman's Hermits. Let me take you on a sea cruise. Well, the first day this gentleman took us out, and it was like one of those Florida square boats. It was long, and it kind of angled up at the end, and the motor was way in back here, and you could sit one or two at a time in between. And the first day out, I mentioned how to the right of us it turns into a bay and comes back out. Well, what happens on the left of us is you get a little bit of the town there. And then about 2 miles away, it curves around and comes back out to follow out to sea. But you've got this side and then you've got that side, and that's how the water gets in, is ocean in between. Well, and down way on the corner there's a turtle sanctuary. Isn't that nice? And because regardless of what any stupid gringo thinks about the water, or, oh, let's go wading. Actually, it's part of the ocean. And I got a big shock sometime later when I saw an animal, television show showing the mating habits of the hammerhead sharks in Bahia de Los Angeles. As far as I could gather, it was to our left, right there in their deep little bowl there, kind of by the turtle sanctuary. Thousands and thousands and thousands of hammerhead sharks. They, I attribute the people who took these couple of videos, attribute to them living through this is because the hammerhead sharks weren't in their normal mode of, I'm having you for lunch. They were there for, hey, Shaggy, how you doing? But, I haven't had sex for a long time, but I do remember when I had sex, I would have sex and then I'd take time to, get something to eat and then come back and have more sex. Just let me intermit here. when I was having sex and I took a break for food, uh, it came to be realization that there's a truism I need to tell you, and that is never cook bacon in the nude. Well, I mean, you think you might not feel it? No, I had some kind of donnery on after that. But anyway, yeah, so you're having sex, but you're taking a break. Well, any of those hammerhead sharks at any time could have said, okay, Sharky baby, catch you in a minute, and come and eaten him for a snack. Yeah. So we didn't see hammerhead sharks, but we later found out that they were there. Sometimes. And when we went out, we saw a great big white whale, and we kind of chased him around, but we couldn't keep up with him, but we saw him several times. And at one point, there was an octopus, medium size. He wasn't huge, he wasn't small. He would have gotten this boat owner a lot of money, because, the restaurant. So he immediately just stopped whatever he was doing with the putt-putt and everything, and just jumped overboard and went down to get him. And the thing is, the water was crystal clear. It might have been 20, 30 feet down, where the octopus, naturally wanting to hide, went in and got under a rock and stayed there. But we could still see where he went. He might have a back exit, who knows? I don't live there. So the Mexican boat driver immediately jumps overboard and swims down and is looking for this freaking octopus, baby. Because like I say, that's worth a lot of money. And I believe he actually made bodily contact one time, but the octopi got away from him. That was during day one of our boating adventures, and after that we went to there's how we got the smaller bay side to our right, and the deeper hammerhead shark side of the bay over here. Well, when that side goes out to meet the ocean, right in between, in the way, kind of, is about a mile wide, mile deep island. Sheer rocks. There's you don't want to spend any time there. You don't want to be trapped there. And there's a small beach, nice sandy white beach, but I don't know how long that lasts in the tides routine of nature. As far as I know, there could be times where there was no beach. I don't know. I only saw it when there was. And we did a little diving off of this rock that day and everything. Well, then comes day 2. This is a long one, but, I'm just trying to get the story across to you. So we're going back out now in this day 2 with the guy who we know the routine now. We know who he is. He's got his boat waiting for us when we wake up. You want a beer? You want a cup of coffee? And, of course, we take ample supplies of beers and vodkas and tequilas because we're going to be out there for a while. Hey, we're not fooling around. Yeah, we're in a boat, but let's not be ridiculous about it. And we just had a great time. Like I say, the water was crystal clear, and we saw several things. Fish life and such. It was very enjoyable. And we were going around kind of by that island that I mentioned. We weren't going there again, but we noticed that there was a gringo group on the beach with their boat beached. And they were, help! Help! So, what are we going to do? We turned around, pretend we didn't see him, and went the other way. No. We went in there, gringo to gringo, and we pulled up on shore and we said, "Que pasa? What's happening, baby?" And they said our motor stalled out and we're stuck here. And this is about 3:30 in the afternoon now. If we didn't rescue them when we did, they would have spent the night there. No doubt about it. Now, the wife who was back at shore, because when one person was newlywed, we had a kick with these guys. The wives didn't necessarily enjoy our sarcasm, but we weren't there for the wife. We were there for the our new best friend that we rescued, and we brought him home for a drinking bout once we had rescued him, and he just loved every second of it. Him and his buddy and their wives. They didn't care if the wives didn't know it. You're sensitive. You get out of here. But it was never like that. It was just, sarcasm, as one does when one is a musician all his life and one has a snootful on vacation. You're not necessarily a Sunday meal material. They didn't care. We saved their lives. What we did was, first of all, the Mexican jumps out of our boat and starts tearing apart their motor. As if he knew what he were doing. And you got to remember, we don't know anything about this boat driver. We don't know anything about his abilities except that he couldn't catch an octopus. And so we were kind of talking with our new friends over here just a little bit away, and they're saying he's tearing it apart. He's not going to be able to fix it. So we put a stop to it. We stopped him. Hey, it's okay. Just put whatever pieces are already laid around and put them back. And what we did was we towed them out of there. Thank God our motor started again. Can you imagine if our motor stopped too? I mean, that would be the perfect little ironical story, but that isn't what happened. And it changed the rest of our afternoon at sea because there was no time to do anything fun anymore. Now what was fun was at a very slow pace because we had a motor that was great for, a couple people in the boat, but for towing another boat, yes, we made way, but it wasn't, it took a couple hours. But we were even more impressed with how dangerous it would have been for them to have been left there all night. And by the way, let me just insert, this reminds me of a true story of two tourists, and they had a little boat. 1 second, please. And they were there from somewhere where we were, Bahia de Los Angeles, starting out. And they didn't necessarily bring any water. They didn't necessarily bring any coats. They didn't necessarily bring any food. Because in their tourist opinion, where they were going, yes, I've described to you the bay that cuts off here and how it comes around here. Well, if you go water-wise, continue to go east instead of down the toilet, as it were, you run into Maine, Mexico. The Mexico mainland is right over there. Well, it's easy to say right over there when you're looking at a map and when you're just not understanding that you need to be prepared for what might go wrong. These two people were on a 2-hour journey over to Maine, Mexico, and it didn't occur to them that there was going to be a problem. Well, that was the first problem. But the first real problem was their motor stopped. Now, they had some gas, but they didn't have any clothes and they didn't have any extra food. They might have had a snack. but they couldn't get the motor started, and it was starting to get afternoonish dark, just like it was when we rescued these other people. Except these two persons weren't on that island there. At least on the island, you got the island to get you through the night. Even though it might be hell, it's better than what they went through, because what they went through was they were just subject to the tides. And the tides just twirled them, because they're kind of in this toilet bowl portion. The tide doesn't necessarily want to go right over to the main Mexico side, because it's in turbulence from going in and out of the Bahia de Los Angeles. And they didn't have any radio, they didn't have anything. So they basically froze their little dorkies off, and in the morning there were sharks around the boat. The sharks know when something's up, It's like ringing the dinner bell. Now, somehow these two people were rescued. Oh, I think I remember how. There was a boat that was going somewhere hither and yon, and even though it was quite far away, it was close enough that they saw these two helpless people in this little boat, and they rescued them. Otherwise, they could have been out there for months in that little whirlpool pool, water makeup. So anyway, that's just to show you, that's a story that I remembered, and I related to it because it happened right there at Bahia de Los Angeles. And the reason I tell you that is because that's how dangerous it was for these people that we got off of that little island. There wouldn't have been anybody there, maybe tomorrow, because one of them's newlyweds was on shore. So she would have raised she was very paranoid and, wasn't adventuresome or tolerant of people who rescue. So she would have said something, and who knows, they might have gone out there at night with boats with lights on them. Or, I don't know. But there's a good chance they might have had to spend the night there, and then sometime in the morning or afternoon, somebody would come along and say, "Hey, what's up? What you doing?" We saved them from that because we rescued their ass. And when we got back, now we had saved up for this vacation for a long time. We don't, I'm a professional drummer in a non-unionized, very small town where I hide away. So my music career isn't exactly on fire. In other words, I don't have lots of money most of the time. But these people that we rescued, they were top drawer, baby. Oh, they had campers, and they had this, and the wives had curlers, and, normal middle-class America still. That's who these people were. But they were immediately our friends, regardless of class, poor, medium, rich, because we saved their life. And we just had the most fun because we were... Well, you have to understand that I lived with Ted for several years when both of us were bartenders and musicians and had little connection, if any, to the outside world except for seeing it on TV. Being two drunken bachelor musicians, our banter was often sarcastic and rude, and that's just the daily fare, language-wise. Everything was cool. We never hurt anybody's feelings. We always knew we were just being, you can tell the difference in personalities from a drummer, like crazy, swimming with the hammerhead sharks. And you can tell the difference between a drummer and a bass player. That's the easiest one you can ferret out when you look at a group. First of all, the bass player is the one with the great big strings, and so there are guitars and there are tuners on everything. On the bass guitar, it's great big tuners because it's 4 or 5 great big strings so that it can make bass noise. Boom, ba-dum, boom, boom, boom. It's supportive counterpoint, very low area to music out in. And this shows itself in the type of personality, not always, in the type of personality of who is a bass player quite often. They're very quiet. They're very, refrained. Not that they don't enjoy a good sarcastic party by a drummer from time to time, but I mean, they don't normally display that attribute. They are laid back and supportive. So, I forget why I told you that, but it's true. And so, that's the story of our sea rescue. Let's see if we can possibly find a way to bring up that Herman's Hermits and sea cruise, baby. It was nice talking to you. It's hard to tell you stories about the Mexican vacation because, well, there's so much to them. Oh my gosh. Sorry about that. Well, I guess I can be glad that didn't happen during the whole montage, you know what I'm saying? So there we go. There's an important chapter in the Mexican vacation series. Hope you enjoyed it. I like telling it to you. Now's the time where I would fade out to black, but once again with this camera, there is no fade to black, so I have to do something a little more artistic. As follows.